I left my husband when he was out of job. Now that business is good, I want him back, but he wants divorce. I'll admit it straight up. I could have handled things better with my husband. However, we have been married 24 years since we were both 20. He is now 44 and I am turning 45 in October. We have 3 kids, 17F, 13M, and 10F. My husband had a career in a field that he's been in for 20 years. He was on the rise, but then his company got bought up by another. He started coming home from work aggravated because of the new set of work politics he was dealing with. One thing led to another and suddenly he was laid off. The strain it took made me unable to be at my mental best, so my work suffered and I was put on a performance improvement plan at my data entry job. I was so down that when a supervisor asked me if I thought this job was working out, I just gave up and said no. And I quit. My husband became distant and one time even slammed his hand on a desk and cried that he felt like a loser. Even me losing my job did not get him to react in any way. Finally, one night, even though he was in a bad mood, he approached me like he wanted fun time. That floored me. All the bitterness bubbled to the surface. And in the end, he was just giving me blank okay responses. When I asked him to leave because we needed a break, he refused, saying this was his house too. He did nothing wrong. So the next day, I took the kids and used an emergency credit card to pay for an extended stay hotel. That's when my husband started blowing up my phone. But I put him on do not disturb for my peace of mind. I ended up borrowing money so we could get a short-term apartment lease. My husband's tune changed when he realized I was getting loans. Even though I had cooled down some by the 1-month mark, he was now angry and we lapsed into a cold war. Then after 8 months, we began talking. By that point, he was no longer interviewing for jobs, but decided to become an independent consultant and business was good. I decided to surprise him one day by sneaking into the house's kitchen and making his favorite dish. He coldly told me to leave and said I was so eager to leave this house back then. After that, he stopped talking to me and filed for divorce. I was flabbergasted because we had been going to family therapy and he said,
"Ideally, the family should stay together."
But now he's calling me a traitor and saying he can never trust me again. When again, he acknowledged he was being distant. We went from planning to sit by each other at our daughter's dance competition to him only talking to me via lawyers. My oldest understands this divorce more than her siblings. She has told me she has cried over her parents splitting. I told her I was so upset too and her dad is being cold out of maybe revenge. I was desperate and asked my daughter that next time she saw her dad to please beg on behalf of the mom of his kids to rethink divorce. He was throwing away decades and a family when I wanted to work things out. After my daughter did that, my husband said I was wretched and a manipulator. Am I the a-hole for asking my daughter to beg my husband to rethink the divorce? Here are the top comments.
So let me get this straight. You left your husband when he obviously needed you the most and put your family in debt by using credit cards and taking loans. Then after 8 months, when he's doing well for himself, you decide he's good enough for you and then you can return. Of course you're the a-hole.
Bigger a-hole issue is involving the children. You do not ask the child to beg on behalf of mom or dad. You engage your partner directly, no surprises at his residence, and you both shield you children from the negative emotions and chaos of a broken relationship. You're the a-hole.
But she tried to surprise him with his favorite meal. Is anything enough for you people?
And he didn't even thank me for the Kraft mac and cheese.
You're the a-hole. Y'all marriage sounds sticky and complicated. I don't really have anything to say about that. But you are an for trying to leverage your children against your ex in a divorce.
Am I the a-hole for telling my sister her son is only special to her? I, 26F, have 3 older siblings. This is about my oldest sister, Abby, 37F. Abby has a son, 5-year-old, and I have a daughter, 1-year-old. Abby dealt with years of fertility issues and had probably 10+ miscarriages. Then she had her son and of course, he was Abby's miracle rainbow baby. We were so happy for her. But then it leads to Abby spoiling her son and letting him get away with everything because he's a miracle and he's special. Everyone has always bit their tongue when it comes to her son because of that. On Saturday, I had my daughter's first birthday party. It was mostly family and a few of my close friends were invited. I invited Abby and her son because everyone else in our family was invited, so I felt felt bad excluding her. We had different activities for the kids to do. Abby's son didn't like any of them. He was upset none of the presents were for him. He didn't want to eat any of the food we had. He then decided to try and push the cake off the table because apparently he was mad the cake wasn't his. I got super upset at Abby for allowing her son to act that way. She went on to say her son is special. I said her son is only special to her, which is understandable. But to everyone else, he's a spoiled brat which shouldn't be overlooked because he was your special miracle baby. Abby called me a bitch and left crying. A few family members have since called me an a-hole because I've never dealt with a miscarriage, so I don't understand how painful it was for Abby to deal with years of that before her son. It's not that I don't realize her son is special to her, but it doesn't give the excuse for Abby to allow him to act like a spoiled brat. Am I the a-hole for pointing it out? Here are the top comments.
So, I have dealt with multiple miscarriages and do understand the pain. Still not the a-hole.
Same. Hugs. OP's sister is not the only one this happens to. I think the stats are something like 1 in 4 pregnancies. It can be tragic and traumatic and something that never leaves you. It's also something that lots of people can't or won't talk about, which causes its own issues. It's still no excuse for raising an entitled child that no other person can stand to be around. It could be setting the poor child up for a difficult life and a difficult life for those around him.
Not the a-holy. Being a rainbow baby isn't an excuse to be terrible. Your sister is neglecting parenting her child because of the difficulty in having him. That's a road to disaster. A strong wake-up call was needed.
Not the a-hole, and tell the flying monkeys that your sister is actively harming her child by not preparing him for living with others in same society. Kid will go to school soon, and it will be really hard for the kid if mom doesn't get her head out of her ass.
You are correct. Her allowing this behavior will escalate to the point where no one will want to be near him or her. Not the a-hole. A miscarriage doesn't allow for, oh well, he's special and gets a free pass at being an a-hole.
Am I the a-hole for sleeping with my boyfriend's younger brother after he asked for an open relationship? I, 26F, have been with my boyfriend 26M for about 2 years. Never had any issues until last month when he asked to open our relationship. He said that all men have the innate desire to sleep with as many women as they like. He said that women are attracted to men like him who are in their peak physical shape and that he should take advantage of that. Something about men wanting to spread their seed far and wide. I did not see this coming at all. I was appalled. At the end, he said that I'm wife material and the woman he wants to come home to, but of course, that just rubbed salt on the wound. However, I told him that this is fine and asked if he has anyone in particular in mind. He was surprised by my reaction and told me how awesome I am for being so understanding. Then he showed me his Tinder and upcoming date. He knew that this arrangement only benefited him because I'm not into casual flings, so wouldn't be sleeping around. He even said that he knows that I wouldn't go looking for other guys because I'm too sweet and loyal. So, he has a 19-year-old brother and I called him the following day. I explained the open relationship situation to him and asked if he's interested in some fun. Long story short, he was willing but felt insecure because he still has his V card. I told him that's okay. We slept later that night. Afterwards, I asked my BF about his date and he said he had a great time. I told him that I met a younger, cute rugby player who is shy and inexperienced. He was curious and asked for a picture, which I showed him. Utter chaos. He had a complete meltdown and called me all sorts of slurs under the sun. I told him it's natural for me to want someone like his younger brother. You know, peak physical form and all that. He was still blowing up my phone even after I left his house and sent me dozens of texts. I told him the relationship is over, but he kept saying that he forgives me even though I'm deeply F up and deranged. He suggested therapy but claimed it might not help someone as evil as me. Am I the a-hole for doing it after he wants open relationship? Here are some funny comments.
This is the most satisfying thing I've read in a while, lol. The best part is that the BF is begging for her to come back because he knows he F up. I love to read the creative writing subreddit, written by a V card holder 19-year-old rugby player who has an older brother with a hot girlfriend. I'm pretty sure open relationship meant literally everybody except his younger brother.
Too bad.
Tell him that you need to be seated from far and why.
And that you started close to home because you're so sweet and loyal. Lol.
Okay, this is peak writing, but damn, is it hitting just the right rage spots and scratches that sweet revenge itch? And in case C is real, I'm somewhere between NTA and ESH, because you did do that on purpose, but then again, he was just looking for any reason to eat his pies. Him sowing, this is amazing. Him reaping, oh, what the F?
Am I the a-hole for not inviting my sister to my wedding because she didn't invite me to hers? I'm 24F and I'm getting married in a few weeks. 7 years ago, my sister got married and I was so excited for it. I talked to her about the wedding, what dress I'll wear and if I could help her plan it. But she was always dismissive, and a few weeks before the wedding, she told me that it would be 18 plus. She said she wanted to exclude annoying kids and made this rule and she can't make exceptions and all this crap. She also said I was too young for the adult atmosphere and whatever. My 18th birthday was a week after the wedding. I was devastated and I begged my sister to let me come. I really wanted to be there and support her. My stepmom refused to go to the wedding as a result of that, and my dad almost divorced her over that, among other things. I eventually accepted it and I told my sister,
Remember this, I will not invite you to my wedding.
She scoffed and laughed and said,
You are being immature and you'll forget about it anyway.
Fast forward to present. My fiance's dad owns a massive yacht company. They rent out yachts, make repairs, and sell equipment. The wedding party will take place on a yacht which can accommodate 200 guests. She asked me about the wedding and I flat out told her,
You're not invited at all.
You're being petty here. You're just getting back at me for not inviting you in my wedding.
She also added how hurtful I was and that her reasons were justified and it's in the past. To be honest, I feel she just wants to be on the yacht and not so much supporting me. I told her back,
You should have thought about that back then, and now you understands how I feel. You're just jealous that my wedding will be better than yours.
My dad called me and said I need to stop being petty and invite her, and other family agree. I told them no, and after some arguing they respected it. My sister is being a B-word about it on Facebook. A friend suggested I should make my sister delete all the Facebook posts and write an apology letter saying why it was wrong to exclude me from the wedding. I think that's cringe, but what do you all think? I'm literally turning 18 a week after her wedding. She could have invited me as her sister, but she didn't. Am I the a-hole for getting back at her after all these years? Here are some of the best comments. OP's response to the sister should be,
Don't worry, in 7 years, it will all be in the past and you will have forgiven me.
Not the a-hole. If you were like 12 or 13 when you weren't invited to her wedding, it's a different story. But you were a week from being 18. Your wedding, your rules. Maybe your sister can rent a dingy and get people to toss her canapés. Not the a-hole. Your sister was the petty one. Your birthday was a week after the wedding. Petty AF. Now your wedding is so cool and glamorous she wants in. Nope, not the a-hole. But I can't help wondering why your parents had no problem with your sister excluding you from her wedding, but you have to invite her to yours. Cough cough golden child cough.
Am I the a-hole for faking sleeping all night to see if my wife is lying? The past couple of months, my wife has been complaining about our cats. She's been claiming that the cats wake her up constantly and that she's frustrated every night that she has to get up and open the door for the cats, or the cats keep making noises, or the cats keep jumping on her. It got to the point where she started saying she wants me to get rid of them. I told her I've never seen or heard any of this, but she claims I sleep through it all. She kept telling me she was getting less and less sleep and kept acting aggressive, blaming lack of sleep from the cats, and that if I didn't get rid of them, she'd leave me. I legitimately started considering giving the cats to my sister until I noticed something. One morning, she claimed she had gotten up multiple times throughout the night to help the cats. She listed a bunch of times. I thought it was weird because I had been up until 4 a.m. and she claimed that she got up at 1 a.m. to open the door for them and a few times around 3 a.m. because they were meowing and jumping on her. I was in the bedroom the entire time while she slept, and I know none of that happened. Things weren't adding up, so I decided to run a test. I waited until she said she was going to bed. Then I let the cats out of our bedroom, lowered my phone brightness, and faked going to sleep. I just laid there in bed for the entire night. But I definitely did not fall asleep. I made sure to make timestamps every 30 minutes on my phone through Discord just to be sure. I marked down every noises my cats made. One cat had jumped down from something and made a little sound at 3:18 a.m. and one ate food relatively quietly at the bedroom door at 4:57 a.m. Other than that, nothing happened. Sure enough, my wife slept from 11 p.m. until 9 a.m. And that morning she claimed she had woken up at least 7 times to open doors and from cat noses and cats jumping on her. At this point, I was pissed because she was clearly lying to me. I was exhausted and fed up with the lies, so I just bluntly called her out on it. I told her, "That's funny. I stayed up all night to monitor the cats, and they weren't even in the room at all last night. I have timestamps and everything. So you've been lying to me and trying to convince me to get rid of my cats. Why?" She just sat there quietly shaking and looking pissed, then got up and left without answering. She came back hours later and ignored me whenever I talked. And when I asked her how I'm the bad guy in this situation, she finally said that I was treating her like a child by lying about sleeping and staying up all night just to see if she was lying or not, and that making timestamps and everything as if I was an investigator was going too far and makes me an obsessive a-hole. I did it because she was threatening to make me get rid of my cats or she'd leave me, and her claims didn't add up. So, am I an obsessive a-hole? Here are the top comments.
Not the a-hole. That was gaslighting and manipulative. And if she had issues with your cats, she should have said so directly.
Don't let her flip this around on you either by making you out to be the bad guy for catching her in a lie.
Not the a-hole, but you've kinda called her bluff about her leaving you now. You've removed the cat's excuse from the equation. Wishing you all the best.
Not the a-hole, in my opinion. You had to test her. She's trying to get you to get rid of your pets and essentially blackmailing your relationship over it.
My daughter's father and his girlfriend named their newborn child the same as my daughter's name. A little bit of context for you all. I ended up falling pregnant with my 10-year-old daughter during a drunken hookup with a friend in my mid-20s. Not the most glamorous or flattering truth, but it's the truth all the same. When we found out, we decided to keep the child and co-parent while remaining friends. We were never a couple and we didn't want to be one either. 4 years ago, he began to date his long-term girlfriend and they moved in together last year. She fell pregnant and I've been supportive to them both as much as I could be without crossing any lines. I've encouraged my daughter to help out whenever she's staying with them during the pregnancy and to behave. I've also made it clear that I want the children to have a close relationship despite having different mothers. I've even said that if they were comfortable with it, on nights I have my daughter. If they ever want alone time, I'll babysit once they have the baby so my daughter can spend time with her sibling. All in all, I thought everything was great and I was excited for my daughter to have a sibling as she's always wanted one, but I had no interest in having another child. 3 days ago, my friend and his girlfriend's daughter was born. They asked me to bring my daughter to the hospital to meet her little sister yesterday alongside others of the family. So I did exactly that, but when they introduced us to the baby, I was shocked. They'd used my daughter's name. She didn't seem to have any issue with this when she introduced the baby bold as brass. My friend seemed uncomfortable and wouldn't look at me directly. I asked them what they were playing at which point my friend's father said he'd take my daughter down to the cafeteria to get something to eat and left with her. My friend told me to calm down and not overreact while his girlfriend told me she didn't see the issue and it was a pretty name. I asked them if they'd named the baby for my daughter, trying to understand the logic here, but his girlfriend said that no, it was just a pretty name she liked. I then asked if they planned to use a nickname or a middle name when addressing to her on a daily basis, and her response was that she didn't see a need for that. I told them they were being ridiculous and that they couldn't do this. I then told his girlfriend that I found this frankly creepy and told my friend he was being spineless if he was happy to go along with this. He tried to claim our daughter could use a nickname or something, but I shut that down immediately, asking why it was more reasonable for a girl who has used that name for a decade to shame her name compared to a baby who had no concept of what a name was yet. His girlfriend told me I was being a B-word talking to her like that after she just gave birth and asked the nurses to remove me, saying I was being disruptive. Maybe my temper is running a little too hot and I was too harsh on her when she just gave birth, but it's just so freaking weird. I'd also like to state, I know that what they want to name their child is their choice. They could have called her Dinosaur for all I care, but this is one one name that should be off limits or adjusted. They even have the same surname as they have the same father. Something about it just felt malicious and deliberate, as if she's trying to replace my daughter, and for them both to spring it on us like that at the first meeting? No, that was weird. Am I the a-hole for calling my daughter's father spineless and his girlfriend creepy over their name choice for their daughter? Here are some best comments. Not the a-hole. From the outside, it sure reads like she wants to replace her partner's affection for his first daughter with his new baby. Of course, it's creepy. And the suggestion that the 10-year-old should use a nickname? Wow. Talk about audacity. Not the a-hole. Having two daughters with the same name and surname is messed up. It is definitely not accidental. There are thousands of pretty names out there. Not the a-hole. This is ridiculous of them and will cause both girls issues with government paperwork for their whole lives going forward. They aren't doing the new baby any favors here.
My girlfriend sold my 1967 Impala Collector project to the scrapyard without me knowing. I had a 1967 Impala four-door that I bought in February 2019. A couple months ago, I bought my first house that had a 2.5 car garage. I moved the car in and started tearing it down for a complete restoration. I had the body in one bay and the chassis in another, plus the whole garage filled with parts. About 2 months ago, my girlfriend came to live with me during this whole crisis and the whole time has hated that car. She wants to park in the garage, but I have 2 acres of land with a lot of nice places to park under shady trees, or hell even in the barn if it has to be inside. I tell her tough luck, it's my house and it's not like I can just throw it back together real quick. Anyways, I was out of town for a couple days on a business trip for the small local company I work for. When I got back, my girlfriend was all smiles, making me food all the time, doing all the chores, all that. I thought maybe she just was happy to have me home, but then I realized that I didn't see her car in its usual spot. I asked her where she parks so I could make sure I mow that area and keep it clean, and she said,
"Don't worry, I parked my car in the garage."
I asked how, and she told me to go check it out. Turns out that while I was gone, she hired some people to come over and move everything related to that car, including the drivetrain, body, chassis and all parts, and took it to the local dump scrapyard. I was absolutely dumbfounded. I had spent over 11 grand on that car, including new parts, services, and the car itself. I told her that I was going to be taking her to court for that, and she brushed me off like I was being dramatic. I told her that it's done between us and to pack her things and leave. I admit I was really angry, but I did end up getting a lawyer, and as I have all the receipts for all that money spent, and I have her on my house CCTV footage, letting the guys in and watching them take it all. Her family and friends are absolutely blowing up on me, saying it's just a stupid old piece of junk, and that she cannot pay back all that money I spent, and that I should just let it go. But I have been putting all my time, effort, and money into that car for a year and a half, and damn it if I am not going to get justice for what she did. Am I the a-hole for suing her over selling my car? Edit. Thank you all so much for the support. I'm glad I have some people on my side. I got a call from her mom about 20 minutes ago, and she told me that I was ruining her daughter's life over a stupid car. I told her she ruined her own life. I've been gathering documentation and stuff, and I'm about to head down to the police station and file a report, as suggested by Lots here. Update. I went to the police station last night, was told to come back in the morning, just got back and filed an official report against her for grand larceny and grand theft auto. I showed them all the receipts I had for the car, and the footage of her letting the guy's con man take it, as well as the title for the vehicle in my name. They said they will be in contact with all 3 parties soon, me, XGF and junkyard guys, and hopefully they will be able to recover some or all of the car. Just have to wait now. Huge update. They found my damn car. The junkyard guys apparently were in the middle of hiding it when the police came to ask them questions. It was on a forklift, and they were gonna put it on top of a pile of cars that was hidden behind more piles of cars. They said it was theirs and they had the title, but obviously they didn't have the title for it. And since they matched the VIN on the chassis and body to the VIN on my title, it was obviously mine. I know at least one person there has been arrested. I think he was in the camera footage I talked about earlier, but I don't know if it was the boss or whomever, or even his specific charge. They also told me they would be looking into this specific junkyard for any other vehicles reported stolen. They said they haven't been able to get in contact with my ex just yet, but they're working on it. I'm just so glad they found my car. Luckily, I made quite an album of pictures detailing me tearing down the car, and so I can use that to prove what parts they had were mine, so I can hopefully get most or all of it back. The police haven't let me take it back home yet, as they say it is evidence or something, so hopefully I can get it back eventually. Thank you all so so much for the support and advice.
Am I the a-hole for ruining my mom's 40-plus-year friendship over friend's freeloading daughter? My mom's friend's daughter was moving to my city, and her new job was starting 3 weeks before her lease. She desperately texted asking to stay in my tiny one-bedroom apartment for 3 weeks. For context, I haven't talked to this girl for 15-plus years, but our moms are besties of 40-plus years. Our moms were bridesmaids, helped each other through family death, etc. Because of this, I felt a lot of pressure into saying yes to letting her stay. The daughter, as I learned, is a bratty spoiled 23-year-old who expects people to do everything for her for free while she spends her parents' money on $900 shoes and $1,000 plus designer homeware. Red flag number 1. After I agreed to let her stay, I proceeded to ask her on the details of her arrival, assuming she would be considerate enough to give advance notice. Turns out, she only gave me literally 2 days of notice of her 3-week stay. Red flag number 2 to 6. She then proceeded to freeload off of me for almost an entire month, living entirely for free in my apartment. She did not offer to cover any apartment costs. She threw away my food from the counter, broke items including my travel memorabilia, left moldy food on my dining table, lost my spare house key within 5 hours of her arrival, then asked to take my personal key to get in and out of the apartment. I had to spend an evening running around Home Depot and locksmiths. Red flag number 7. The falling out. The falling out came with a weekend getaway to Maine I planned for my own vacation. When she asked my weekend plans, I mentioned the trip. She then invited herself to tag along, which for her I guess means free. I paid for the rental car, the hotel, the gas money, the national park entry fee, and drove the entire trip, 12 hours of driving in total. When it came time to pay for gas or any shared trip costs, she turned the other way. But then I watched her buy a $40 disposable camera, $8 lattes, and other exorbitant things for herself. After the trip ended, I split the trip cost in half, $200 each, and told her she can pay me back when able. She got mad and gaslit me, saying she didn't think she would have to split costs, that she is not in a position to split, and that she contributed in small ways. Example, paying a $4 parking pass and 1 coffee. I let out all my frustrations and ended by calling her a freeloader. She left the apartment angry and got her parents to book her a hotel room. Moms are super mad and their friendship is now quite tense. From my end, maybe I should have communicated problems from red flag number 1, said no more, or been explicit about trip costs. I was trying to avoid conflict and never thought someone would be bratty enough to freeload my vacation. Am I the a-hole for speaking the obvious? Here are some of the best comments.
Not the a-hole. You rightly called them out and have absolutely nothing to apologize for. And if the mom's friendship is ruined over this, then it was superficial anyways. Her friend's daughter took advantage of her own daughter. Her friend finds nothing wrong with that. I bet if Op's mom took a hard look at her own 40-year friendship, she will find that there's a reason why the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that it wasn't really a friendship at all. Not the a-hole. Everyone suck here. She does suck, but in any situation where you expect to be paid, you should communicate those expectations upfront. If you had communicated your issues to her earlier, perhaps she would have moved into a hotel sooner. No, for real, this timeline and amount of liberties and OP didn't communicate it once, and then just blew up. This is a good example of how people-pleasing behavior can easily become manipulative and make the people-pleaser a resentful person.
This comment is so accurate. Letting so many things slide, and it will just continue to fester until you reach the final straw. A very helpful self-reflection that people-pleasing is actually a terrible personality trait to have. Am I the a-hole for punching my husband's sister? I couldn't believe what I've heard. I 32F have been married to my husband 34M. Let's call him Henry for 6 years. We have a 3-year-old son together. Our relationship has always been strong and filled with trust. I have never had any problems with his family and my family absolutely adores him. His sister Sarah 28F and I have always gotten along great. When I was pregnant with our first and only child, Ben, she started acting strange. She was always offering to help my husband with everything having to do with our son, but when it came to me, it was radio silence. I figured she didn't want to take the chance in upsetting me since my hormones were all over the place. Once my son was born, she was an amazing aunt. She was always asking my husband to watch him and keep him overnight. To be honest, the break was nice sometimes. However, after my son turned 3, she started inviting my husband and son out to do things but would do it on a day that she knew I couldn't attend or purposely only buy 3 tickets to things. There was several times where she said she wanted to have brother and sister time. My husband started noticing that she was never asking me to go out with them anymore. He brought it to my attention, but I brushed it off. A few months after this was going on, my husband brought it to my attention again. This time, I told him that it was very hurtful for me. The next time his sister invited him somewhere, he told her that he would not be going if I was not invited. This is where she flipped. She started blowing up his phone and telling him that I do not need to be involved in everything, and that they should be able to have sibling bonding time with her nephew included. He eventually blocked her to let her cool down as she would not stop blowing his phone up. I went ahead and did the same before she started with mine. About an hour later, she showed up at our front door with their parents. My son was laying down, so we stepped out front with the baby monitor in hand so she didn't start screaming inside and wake him up. She started going on and on about how she is a priority over me. I agreed, as she is his immediate family, and that he would never love me like he loved her. I would hope not, since she is his sister and not his wife. I didn't pay much mind to it until she said, to my best recollection,
I'm the mother that Ben will never have because you're here. I will love him more than you could, and I love Henry more than you ever could.
The look on my husband's face was pure rage. I will admit, I feel like I shouldn't have done it, but in that moment, I saw red and punched her in her face. I heard her nose crack and she started crying. His dad is completely on my side and says that it sounds like she has feelings for Henry. My husband is also on my side. However, his mother says that she only meant it in an overprotective sister way and that I was out of line. I am starting to feel guilty about it. It's been 2 weeks since we spoke to his sister or mom. So am I the a-hole here?
Am I the a-hole for telling my aunt to get over her daughter's death? Okay, hear me out first. So my cousin is turning 18 next month and she isn't looking forward to it. She was a twin and her sister unfortunately passed a few hours after birth. This is obviously very upsetting for all members of the family and a horrible situation to be handed. However, me and my cousin are extremely close, and every single birthday she has had has also been about her twin sister. Her mom will always put a little fancy background with her twin's ashes and make my cousin take photos with it every birthday. She always posts happy birthday to my 2 beautiful girls. Up until my cousin was about 6, she was okay with this. However, since then she always expresses how she no longer feels like her birthdays are important anymore, as it makes her mother upset due to the reminder. And also because she feels everyone only talks about her twin and how they are so sorry for her loss. She doesn't feel like an individual person and constantly feels attached to her dead twin. Last night I asked her what she was doing for her birthday. She said her dad had wanted to take her to Spain, but her mother said no because
I don't think we can take the ashes overseas, and it's too risky to bring Layla, the twin who passed, in case something happens.
This upset me a little, as her 18th is a big birthday and she is being held back by her sister who, A, isn't alive, and B, she doesn't even remember. I asked her if she's told her mom how upset she gets about her birthdays and how she doesn't feel like she can be an individual. She said she doesn't want to upset her mom, so hasn't told her. Today at a family gathering, my aunt was talking about how excited she is for the photographer to take pictures of my cousin and Layla's urn. I pulled her to one side and said, we all understand how she feels, but that she needs to get over and accept that Layla is gone and focus on her living daughter. She was extremely offended. Even after I told her how my cousin feels, she has uninvited me from my cousin's birthday. Am I the a-hole for this? Update. After reading some comments, I've messaged my cousin's dad, who has agreed us 3 will be going to Spain to celebrate my cousin's 18th. My aunt is definitely not happy with this, as it's disrespectful to Layla and to everyone else who has made plans to see my cousin. But the flights and hotel are now booked and my cousin is feeling a lot better about her 18th. Here are the top comments.
Not the a-hole. It sounds like your aunt needs extensive therapy. It's been 18 years and she's still acting like her daughter is alive and should be included. I understand losing a child is painful, but that doesn't give her the right to impede her living daughter's life. Refusing to allow her to go on a trip because of an urn is flabbergasting.
If my mother denied me a trip for a milestone of my life with that reason, I would be livid, and surely our relationship would deteriorate quickly.
My heart goes out to OP's cousin for having such an opportunity ruined because her mother is more concerned about an urn than her living, breathing daughter. I can't imagine how the cousin must feel knowing her dead twin's ashes are prioritized over her.
How long does OP's aunt intend to continue this? Will she want to include the urn in graduation pictures? Wedding pictures? I would be horrified.
Am I the a-hole for not helping my parents with my estranged sister's kids? I, 29F, have been estranged from my sister Elizabeth, 32F, for the last 8 years. Back when I was 21, I was engaged to my ex, Frankie, 30M, and I had just found out I was pregnant. I told Elizabeth because she was my big sister and we were there for each other. It had been a huge shock to me because I got pregnant while on birth control. Elizabeth acted slightly off when I told her, and at the time I thought she was disappointed in me getting pregnant before finishing college. Days after I told her I was pregnant, she told me she and Frankie had been together behind my back for 3 years of my 5-year relationship with him. Not only were they going behind my back like that, but he had proposed to her and given her a family ring. She told me she wanted me to get an abortion and leave them to be together. I miscarried around the time everything was coming out. I ended the engagement and Frankie moved in with Elizabeth. I did not speak to either of them again. My parents were torn between both of us. My grandma, who lives with my parents, is the only one that had been firmly on my side. They said what Elizabeth had done was awful, but she was still a good person. We all knew the kindness she had inside of her and how she had been a good big sister until she wasn't. They respected that I did not want anything to do with Elizabeth and they did not try to change my mind. 8 years later and I'm happily married now and expecting a baby with my husband Gray. Elizabeth and Frankie did get married after and they have children together. My parents have grown very concerned over Elizabeth as a mother. Grandma said she's very shallow and treats her kids like their accessories and cares little for them or their well-being. She just wants them to look good and wear the cute things she picks out. Grandma rolled her eyes telling me all this. My parents are trying to intervene and protect Elizabeth's kids. They have mentioned it to me twice. The last time, I got some vibes from them that they might ask me to intervene as well. I decided to get ahead of their ask by telling them I am not going to get involved in helping them with Elizabeth's kids. I said it felt like they were on the verge of asking and I wanted to save them the effort. My parents were stunned and questioned why I wouldn't want to get to know my nieces. I said we might be blood related, but that was as far as it would go, given what their parents had done to me. I also told my parents I had no obligation to expose myself to Elizabeth again, and that it didn't surprise me too much that someone who would betray their own sister that way and ask her to get a termination of pregnancy so her own relationship with my ex would be easier, would be a crappy mom to her kids, and would see them as accessories. My parents said my attitude is too cold, and since I have moved on and found happiness, I should find love for my nieces. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to associate with them? Here are the top comments.
Nobody wants to believe their kids are horrible human beings. I really feel for your parents, but where was this support for you when sis blew up your life? The "she's not a bad person, she does bad things" argument is ridiculous.
I have always been of the opinion that blood means little compared to how people treat you. Not the a-hole.
Not the a-hole. Your parents are lucky that they still have a relationship with you.
I'm leaving my disabled boyfriend who saved my life at the cost of his own. 3 years ago, my boyfriend and I were walking down a wet and busy road on holiday in Thailand when a car swerved at a violent speed, trying to avoid a stupid biker stopping on his phone in the treacherous weather that it was. My boyfriend, being the quick-thinking man he is, saw my frozen, terrified body in the direct vicinity of the moving car, and he jumped in front of me, pushing me away from the impact at the same time. I was left with some nasty grazes, but other than that I was fine. But my boyfriend took the hit and was left paralyzed from the waist down. He now lives life in his wheelchair. He has been diagnosed with PTSD from the accident and often has flashbacks in which he'll scream and sweat. He is distant and cold. His mental health is, to put it lightly, very bad. He spends most of his time on his PlayStation and we haven't been physically intimate for months. If he's not playing games, he'll be at the pub with his mates. He does powder with them. He says he can't enjoy fun time anymore. He says he doesn't enjoy fun time with being the way he is. I've tried to tell tell him I still think he's gorgeous and no attraction is lost. He doesn't believe me. He has gained about 4 stone and finds no value in healthy life choices anymore. I feel like I'm living with my best friend who I'm in love with, but like I'm in some sort of friend zone. He says I'm being paranoid. It's him, not me. He tells me he loves me. He has tried therapy. He has made an attempt to not do powder on the weekends. He doesn't want to do it. I have tried to encourage him to do both many times. He says he doesn't resent me. All of my friends talk about how lucky I am and how he loves me so much, but I think that's so messed up because they have no idea what it's like to be in a partnership with someone who is paralyzed. My feelings are just as strong for him as they are when I fell in love with him, but I can't do it anymore. I am exhausted. I will forever be known as the woman who left her disabled boyfriend after he saved her life at the cost of his own. Here are the top comments.
This is super sad.
Very sad. I understand both sides, but I really feel for the boyfriend. That night will be his biggest regret after she leaves. I'm assuming given his mental state.
Which would be kinda sad of him to have that mindset. Honestly, no matter what, she was still someone he loved, and she didn't make him make that choices. She was in a bad situation too, and he can't know what he would have done if the same thing happened to her. Don't get me wrong, he's in a terrible situation, and I think empathy for both is warranted, but only one person made a choices to set these events into motion, and it wasn't her. So it's not fair to make her the bad guy. He needs to talk to someone that has experienced the same situation as him and their journey of the trials and tribulations. Find someone who's in a wheelchair paralyzed for him to talk to.
The only good advice, maybe a support group too.
How about a compromise where you communicate that this is where your head is at?
I have. Maybe I should have mentioned. I gave him an ultimatum and nothing changed. Apart from what feels like false compliments and quick trips to his parents, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, like, okay, at least he's trying. It will get better with time. Instead, he just went back to how he was before. I left him for 2 weeks as a last ultimatum, to show him what it would be like without me. I came back to a house with empty beer cans all over the kitchen, evidence of DUs, and 2 of his friends sprawled out across the sofa. One day he said, I can't protect you anymore. I think he feels emasculated and unsure as to how to navigate the relationship. One of his favorite things to do was skate. His life has changed dramatically. I think he's fallen out of love with life and ultimately out of love with me too.
I can't imagine how difficult this situation is. I am so sorry. I have no idea, but maybe he is trying to push you away purposefully, to be able to save you again from what he considers is incapable to protect yourself. Best of luck.
Yes. He often says that he doesn't want to hold me back. I just wish he would believe me when I tell him that there's nothing more I'd like to pursue than a future with him, just not when he's this version of himself. I understand that these things can vastly change a person. I'm not saying I think it's easy for him. He is a good man. Life is so unfair and he didn't deserve any of this. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to pay for my sister's medical bills? My parents had me at 16. They were both in high school. After I was born, my father dropped out to work full-time and take care of me so my bio mother could stay in school. Eventually, after finishing high school, she realized that motherhood wasn't for her and left my dad and me. I was 2, so I don't really remember her being around. After that, my father worked 3 times as hard to provide for me. He also met a nice woman whom he later married when I was 7. I consider her my mom. I'll call her my stepmother to avoid confusion. My bio mother didn't contribute in any way, not even financially. In fact, the last time she contacted me before now was on my 3rd birthday, which was just a quick happy birthday card through the mail. I never had ill feelings towards her decision because I had my dad, mom, and brother who filled the emptiness she left. My parents have never said anything negative about her. Her leaving me was not something I thought about every day. So you can imagine my confusion when she reached out on social media to talk. I thought about it for days before I agreed. We met in a restaurant for the first time in 25 years. It was awkward small talk at the beginning before we delved into why she left. My bio mother teared up while explaining why. She suffered from postpartum depression and felt trapped by the constant cycle, so she felt compelled to leave. She explained why she reached out and made it clear that she didn't leave because of me. Of course, I sympathized with her as I saw my stepmom go through postpartum depression with my brother and saw how much it affected her. We met a couple more times before I was invited to meet her new family. She had a husband and also had 3 children, 13F, 11M, and 7F. After weeks of this, I had my most recent meetup with my bio mother. She looked distressed while greeting me, so I asked if anything happened. She then explained to me in a quick response that her oldest daughter has health issues. I won't say what due to how sensitive it is. She explained she needs 25 grand for medication and has accumulated medical bills of 20 grand. She asked if I could pay it off. For context, after graduating and receiving my postgraduate diploma, I landed my dream job that earned a good sum of money. I'm certain she may have heard about where my job was from somewhere and saw it as an opportunity. She gave me time to think about it. It didn't take long for me to say no to it. I felt used and exploited. She never wanted to meet me. She just wanted money from the child. She left to help the other child that she loves. After giving her my response, which wasn't much, just a simple, no, I don't feel comfortable with that through text, I was soon bombarded with text messages from her husband telling me what a nasty piece of work I was, followed by more texts from my bio mother about how I'm so cruel for not helping out my sister due to my grudge against her. And then, to top it all off, I was getting some messages from family members from her side of the family questioning why I'm being so difficult. So, am I really terrible for not paying for my half-sister's medication and medical bills?
Am I the a-hole for wanting to spend time with just my husband and 2 children? We have 5 kids in total. I and my husband have 5 children: Rebecca, Sam, Dave, George, and Harry. Rebecca, Sam, and Dave are my stepchildren, husband's children from his first marriage. George and Harry are our bio kids. All 5 children live with us full-time. I have been the 3 older kids' mother figure for almost 8 years now and have a good relationship with them. They see their bio mom every second Saturday for a couple of hours in the afternoon. Their choice to see her that much. There are no court orders. Their mother is unable or unwilling to take care of them on a short or long-term regular basis. When I say that I am a mother figure to Rebecca, Sam, and Dave, I mean I am there for them to listen to issues and normal teen stuff they may want to vent on. I do the cooking, cleaning, clothes washing, etc., and all the general things a mom does in the home. Obviously, they are responsible for keeping their own rooms clean. Husband is of course a supportive dad and is there to help them as well. My husband and I split the cleaning 50-50 pretty much. However, I do 95% of the cooking. The older 3 do not babysit their younger siblings. I do not think that is fair to ask that of them. Recently, in addition to spending quality time as a family of 7, I have also been wanting to spend time with just me, my husband, George, and Harry. My husband and I discussed this and are both in agreement that this can happen. Even though we have discussed this, every time an opportunity has come up to spend time with just the 4 of us, all 7 family members come along. I have gone along with this and allowed it to happen on these occasions, but I can feel myself getting frustrated that I have expressed a need and it keeps getting ignored. Just to clarify, I don't want all events to be just me, my husband, Harry, and George. I am only asking for it to happen occasionally. I want to have family time for all 7 of us to hang out and would be more than happy for that to happen 90% of the time. So, am I the a-hole for wanting this? Here are some of the best comments.
You're the a-hole, whilst you are not an a-hole per se. You are being exclusionary of your children. You have married into a relationship with a man that already have children. Going on a vacation and leaving the other children behind is favoritism. I do not think it's fair of you to expect the other children from being with their siblings. They are a part of your family, and that's what you accepted by marrying a partner with children. You're allowed to have intimate conversations with a child alone, but planning family trips and excluding your other children is neglect. Exactly. They're all her children. And I don't think it's wrong to maybe do certain activities that only a few children would like, as long as all the children are given the opportunity. But I think wanting to exclude the older 3 because they're not biologically hers is an a-hole thing to do. You're the a-hole. All the kids are part of your family. Telling them I want my family time without you is hurtful. It will make them feel like they are not really full members of the family. You can plan things that are age-specific for your younger kids, like a trip to a children's museum, and they might choose not to go, and I would think that is fine as long as you also plan things geared to the older kids and get a sitter for the little ones. Bottom line is once you got married, they all became your children and should be treated equally.
Would I be the a-hole if I'll put my mother-in-law in nursing home? Her kids don't want to. I 44F live with my husband 47M. We have 2 adult children who don't live with us anymore. Ever since my mother-in-law 83F got weaker and older, she is living with us too. 2 years ago, mother-in-law was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. She is under medical care, of course, but despite it, the disease is progressing fastly. Nowadays, mother-in-law cannot stay at home alone as she is dangerous for herself and her surroundings. She almost burned the house twice, and there were also some other accidents. Fortunately, as for now, she didn't hurt herself seriously, but at this rate, the question is when it will happen, not if. Taking care of her is mostly my responsibility, as my husband has very irregular schedule, and because of nature of his work, he often has to be on call and or leave home at short notice. As for me, I usually work 8 to 10 hours a day, mostly from home, but sometimes I have to be in the office. After I finish work, I take care of the house and mother-in-law. My husband helps me as much as possible, but quite often he can't be there for me. I'll be honest, I never was a caretaker type. I don't have enough patience. I don't like when other people depend on me. I am nervous when I suddenly have to adjust my plans. I cared about my children, obviously, and I like to believe that I was a decent mother, but honestly, I have much better contact with them, and as bad as it sounds, love them more since they grew up and got more independent. The more my mother-in-law needs my help, the more I grow impatient, exhausted, and burned out. I do my best not to show it, but the situation really wears me off, and I am well aware that with time she'll need even more attention and patience. Admittedly, given that I cannot always work from home, and mother-in-law can't be alone, I have constant problems at work, which upsets me as I cherish my work and career. Given everything, I want to put my mother-in-law into nursing home. Obviously, before I do so, I'll research and choose one with good reputation and qualified staff. My husband has mixed feelings about it, which is understandable as she is his mother, but he says that given that I'm the one mostly taking care of her, the final decision is mine to make. Problem is, my husband's siblings are raising hell, calling me and husband, but mostly me cruel and undependable. They say I should just hire a nurse or something. I don't want to let a stranger into my house, and I don't want to be a caretaker at all, and in this configuration, I'd still have to take care of mother-in-law after work. Me and my husband offered them that we'll pay them for either taking her to live with one of them or for taking care of her at our place. But they weren't interested, citing that it's too much responsibility and they have their own lives. But that's exactly why I considered the nursing home at the first place. Am I the a-hole for wanting to do this? Here are the top comments.
Reframe the question, am I the a-hole for finding a care solution that meets my mother-in-law's needs and my family's needs? Quite often, people are responding to the phrase put in a nursing home because it sounds like you are kenneling a dog. Alzheimer's is a complex disease that needs increasing levels of care as it progresses. Of course, not the a-hole.
Arguably, it would be more kind to introduce her to that environment earlier on in her progression, so that when she is highly confused, she doesn't find the place completely foreign.
Not the a-hole, but you need to push the decision back on hubby and siblings. Tell them there are 3 options. 1. Nursing home. 2. She stays with you, but all of siblings will finance a 24/7 in-house care. 3. Another sibling of hubby takes her in. Set a deadline. If no decision was made, option 1 will automatically be chosen. Let them figure it out. At this point, it is simply not a-hole territorial anymore. It is plainly dangerous and also unreasonable to have her without care. Even official Alzheimer websites will back that.
Am I the a-hole for hiding my saving from my fiancé? I recently got engaged to my fiancé after 2 years of dating and told her we should probably start looking at houses. She told me that we didn't have the money for a deposit on a mortgage, but I personally have a lot of money in savings. It's a little bit more than $160,000. My girlfriend was initially just shocked because it is a lot of money for a 24-year-old to have saved. I've been extremely lucky in life. After a couple of days, she began to be annoyed at me. She felt like I was hiding this from her. I told her that I didn't hide it from her. I was just raised to not talk about personal finances with anyone other than someone you're married to, and I figured engaged is close enough that I'm happy to talk to her about it. I also said that I had actually used these savings to help her before. I've paid her rent a few times when she couldn't and paid a couple $1,000s for her dog to get surgery. She was still quite angry and has been giving me the silent treatment for the past day. My parents don't see the problem, duh. Her parents understand my perspective but think I should have told her when we moved in together last year. None of our friends know because I don't feel comfortable talking about it with them. I've already asked her if we can talk about it when she's ready, and she just said she'd let me know when she was. I don't think this is relationship pending, but I know she probably wants me to admit I was wrong. I don't think I've done anything wrong. So I'm asking you guys more so, out of curiosity for what others think. Am I the a-hole for not sharing this info early on? Here are the top comments, plus OP reply.
Not the a-hole, and for the love of God, do not marry her without a prenuptial agreement. Don't say you haven't been warned.
This right here, Ob. She's pissed because she's thinking of what she could have been doing with that money. Don't marry without a prenup.
To be the devil's advocate, it could be the opposite. It's possible she feels guilty or disappointed in herself for not having nearly as much set aside for big expenses like he does, and isn't ready to talk because she's too embarrassed of herself.
For real, she got engaged to him thinking he did not have money. That does not make her a gold digger.
Yes, providing a couple of grand, likely without much notice, for her dog's surgery is the sort of thing that shouldn't have passed without some comment or discussion despite the obvious distraction of concern for her dog. Her assertion that we didn't have the money for a deposit on a mortgage sounds like she thought she knew there wasn't money. But if she really thought that, then the previous gifts would have been a lot to get from him. So how did previous conversations about money go? Might she be reacting to having previously thought that his past generosity were big sacrifices for him, and she's now rethinking those situations and how OP presented them?
My fiancé and I have started talking about everything, and I'm reading back over this post by myself just to see what everyone said. This comment is actually a big part of where I think our communication broke down. When it came to helping her with things I always told her it wasn't a big deal, which I thought was me telling her I had the money and it wasn't harming me financially. She took it as me downplaying it to stop her from worrying. I never directly communicated that I wasn't going to be put out by doing those things, and that's 100% on me for being so flippant, because I had all the information. My statements meant one thing to me, but I entirely failed to consider what it looked like to someone without that information.
Am I the a-hole for not wanting my soon-to-be ex in the delivery room? My husband 41M and I 39F have been trying for a baby for 5 years now. I admit that our fun-time life suffered because of how mechanical it became, trying to do all the right things at the right time, and it wasn't lust and desire, but rather for the purpose of conceiving. I might add that my husband wants children as much as I am, but apparently the way we had fun time scarred him, so he cheated on me with a friend of ours. I found out because his sister found out and refused to cover up for him. He said he was sorry and cried and that he loved me. For some sick reason I do believe him, but I couldn't stay in the marriage. When we separated, I found out that I was pregnant. I contemplated termination, but I just couldn't because I lost everything including my marriage for this baby. Plus, I already was in love with them. My husband freaked out when he heard and he begged me to forgive him and take him back, but I couldn't. When I had my scan, I didn't tell him, and he was very distraught saying he wanted to be there. Now he is beside himself when I told him that I didn't want him in the delivery room with me. He was shocked and he literally started crying over the phone. Why does he think he can be there? He is not my husband anymore. I don't even feel comfortable in my underwear around him now. My mom said I'm an a-hole, and I was hoping she would be with me, but she said to forget it because she's not enabling my behavior, so I guess I don't need anyone there. Am I the a-hole for not wanting anything to do with my cheating husband? Here are comments and replies from OP.
Not the a-hole. It's a time when you are very vulnerable. Only people you are comfortable with should be there, even if it's just the doctor and nurses. Once you are put back together and dressed or comfortable in the bed, I would think it fair to let him see the baby, or let the nurse take the baby to him for a bit if you just don't want him near you. But he lost the right to cut the umbilical cord when he went and cheated on you.
It's going to be just the doctor and nurse because my mom declined.
Wow, your mom is an a-hole, supporting the man who cheated on her daughter over said daughter. Sounds like someone who doesn't care if she meets her grandkid or not. I'd probably go low contact myself. I really hope you have a friend or relative to be there with you so you can have some support.
He made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. Tell me you never made a mistake in your entire life? He loves you. He will love your child. You have always been a spoiled brat. Grow up. He made a mistake. These are the only things she's interested in talking about these days. I don't think I want her with me either, to be honest.
Sister-in-law is a solid human being. What he doesn't want the consequences of his actions. Shame shouldn't have done it. Not the a-hole OP. Hope you and your little one well.
He wants forgiveness and reconciliation. We move on and start therapy, and eventually everything is forgotten and we're happy again. He told me that I could be angry at him as long as I wanted and he will be waiting, but please don't throw away a perfect marriage. She meant nothing. I was depressed and made a terrible mistake. Blah blah blah. Mom agrees with him. You know, I can't even look at him, let alone touch him.
Am I the a-hole for buying my biological daughter a car, but not my stepdaughter? Before my daughter Christina, currently 19, started high school, I made her a deal that if she kept above a 3.9 GPA for her freshman through junior year, I would buy her a car for up to $20,000 to have on her senior year, on a condition that, if her GPA dipped below a 3.9, I would take it away. She kept a 4.0 throughout high school, so I let her pick out a car before senior year. During her sophomore year, I met my now wife Jenny 40F and her daughter Emily 17F. Emily started her senior year a couple weeks ago, and a few days ago she texted me asking when I was going to take her to look at cars. This took me by surprise, as I didn't realize she expected a car. She has a 2.7 GPA and spends more time curating her Instagram than doing her homework. I explained to her that Christina received her car as a reward for good grades, not as a given. I later felt bad because I guess I didn't give her the same incentive that I gave Christina, and I told her that if she could get a 3.9 GPA with her senior year grades and get into an accredited college or university, I would let her pick out a car upon graduation. I thought this was a fair deal, or even unfair towards Christina, since I made her keep a 3.9 for all 4 years of high school. But Jenny pulled me aside after Emily went to school and told me I was being unfair, since Emily had different circumstances than Christina. For background, Emily's bio dad was a very wealthy man who spoiled the crap out of her. Everything she wanted, all she had to do was ask for. For the first 12 years of her life, she didn't try in school because her dad promised her he would get her into any college she wanted and give her a job at his company afterwards. Then when Emily was 12, her dad was arrested for serious tax fraud. Essentially, he is in prison now, and Jenny has some money of her own, but nothing compared to the life of luxury they were both used to. I think Emily is very hurt by what happened, and she also hasn't had the chance to develop a work ethic. I told Jenny that I think my only wrongdoing was not helping Emily develop a work ethic sooner, and that my hope is that she rises to the occasion, cleans up her act, and gets the car. I also said I would do everything I could to help Emily research colleges and perfect her application, but Jenny wasn't having it. She and Emily have both been giving me the cold shoulder these past couple of days and still think I'm treating Emily unfairly. I really don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole for sticking to my word? Here's the best comment.
Not the a-hole. You are amazingly generous to make this offer to Emily, a person who you have only known for a few short years. The conditions are absolutely fair and reasonable by any measure. No one is owed a car. Jenny is way off base here and is being an a-hole for demanding this. She is undermining her own argument. Her solution to Emily not having developed a good work ethic is to give her a car instead of developing a good work ethic? No, full stop. I'd keep the offer on the table as a take it or leave it. If Jenny is more focused on spoiling her daughter and trying to make you the bad guy here, you should take a very hard look at your relationship with her. She looks very bad in this light.
Today I messed up by calling my mom the homewrecker. My parents have now just finalized their divorce and I 23F am losing it. For a bit of background, my parents are Asian and had an arranged marriage when my mom was only 18. She had me when she was 19. After the wedding, turns out my mother had an affair with her high school sweetheart and then blamed it on my father and me and her family for ruining her life, as she claimed it was more of a forced marriage. She then fell pregnant and had hoped it was her affair partner's child, but no, I am my father's. She then did a 180 and became a devoted wife and mother. But my dad wasn't having any of it. He made it clear to her that they will from then only be married on paper. And that too, only for the sake of the child. Since then, my mother, as far as we know, never had any contact with her affair partner. But my dad was now seeing other people. I was told about my mother's betrayal when I was 13, and I hated my mother ever since. I made it a point to let her know I was ashamed of her and hoped my father found love elsewhere, as she was a woman of no dignity. I refused to be disciplined by her, and eventually my brother kind of started following my footsteps. After my little brother was born, my father got a vasectomy to assure us that there will be no half-sibling, but he wants casual relationships. Me and my brother have met up with multiple of his partners if they manage to reach a certain time length, but none so far have been long-term serious ones. My mother was quiet in all of this. It only made me angrier. This year, after my brother turned 18 and was ready to go to university, my mother announced she will be filing for a divorce. We live in England and have a no-contest divorce, so she doesn't need any grounds for it. She can simply file, and the only process that requires footwork is asset mediation. We were all blindsided by this, as for 23 years she had never shown an ounce of extreme emotions. During divorce mediation, my dad was quite distraught and my brother was anxious, and I was just confused how it's all happening overnight. During a mediation meeting, I lost it and called her the B word. Homewrecker who ruined this family is once again ripping it apart. She was calm and just said, even people charged with manslaughter have served less than her, and she's now done. She said she doesn't feel any ounce of guilt or love for any of us and simply doesn't care to be in our lives anymore. She left with only her premarital assets and nothing more. The house now suddenly feels empty, even though we ignore her all those years. I don't know what I am feeling and how to process this. Here are some of the best comments.
Your mom left you all for a good reason. She was forced to marry your father. You all treated her horribly for years, while your father did much worse to her. While I disagree with cheating at 18 in a forced marriage, cause let's face it, she didn't want to be married. She coped the best she could. All of her children were cruel to her. Her spouse had her children meeting multiple APs, all for a mistake she made when she was arguably a child herself. I hope your mother goes and is happy. Also, that she never speaks to any of you again. She's only 42. She should build herself a life she wants. Distraught, confused, happening overnight? You all are batshit crazy. Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend's sister that I'm done cleaning up anything her kids mess? My girlfriend and her sister live with me, and her sister has a 2-year-old kid. Without getting into much details, I'll just say this. I work 65 hours a week, come home to a trashed house, and have just gotten over a ant problem due to her child eating on my couch, getting crumbs into it, and her mom not cleaning it up at all. I've gone 9 months of letting it slide because I know her life is hard being a single mom. But the other day I came home from work and she asked me to help clean because she was having some friends over and I told her no. I told her that her child is not mine and that it's not my responsibility to come home and clean up after her kid and that it was hers. She told me that it's not fair and that her life is so hard and she can't keep up with it all and pretty much started crying. I get that life is hard, but I pay all the bills here and tried explaining that to her as well. And that being said, I don't think it's fair that I get to come home and clean up a mess that I never created from a child that I also didn't create. What makes me feel like the a-hole is the fact that while she was crying I told her that my point still stood and that if she couldn't change her act, she could find a new place to live within the next 4 months. I just personally don't see how her kid's mess is my problem, nor my responsibility to handle, especially since she doesn't have to worry about a place to live or even the food she or her kid eats. I even pay for her kids' diapers because damn those are expensive and I'm the only one who can afford them. I do all these things and I'm still expected to do more that I didn't ask for. AITA for telling her to clean up her kid's mess. Here are the top comments.
Not the a-hole. Adults must clean up after themselves and the children they produce. It's that simple.
Not the a-hole. Maybe total her share of the bills per month to make clear how much you're paying for her and ask if she thinks it's reasonable for you to expect a clean house. Otherwise, yes, she can leave.
Not the a-hole. I assume she doesn't pay rent or utilities. If anything, she should be cleaning after you to show gratitude. You are more than generous. I wouldn't let people stay like that at my place for that long. And if they had the audacity to ask me to clean, they would be kicked out on the spot.
Man, so many comments in such little time. A few here say I should have her pay rent, in which I'm thinking of doing, but that also means her staying here longer. All in all though, I'm just happy I wasn't the a-hole. I was starting to gaslight myself into thinking I was in the wrong here. Her kid's an absolute delight, and I don't want to see her go. I just want to stop tripping over toes while I go get water at 3 a.m. or sitting on my couch and finding 3 weeks of cookies saved up in the crevices. Disgusting.
Oh, this woman isn't going anywhere until you make her leave. I am 100% sure the fairy tale you have been told is that this woman and her child will live with you for free and subsidized with more money until she has saved up enough to move out. What is that number? How much has she saved so far? I promise you, it's not happening. She is not giving up this sweet deal without a big push out the door.
If I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure anything has been saved at all and it kinda sucks. I wanna kick her out if things keep going the way they are, but where would she go? At the end of the day I can care less where she goes, but I care where her kid goes. Might be irritating now, but at the least I know they're safe in the meantime.